Do you want to do more than follow orders? Think outside of the box and manifest your dreams? Then you've come to the right show. Welcome to the award-winning podcast, Holding Down the Fort by U.S. VetWealth. I'm your host, Jen Amos, a Gold Star daughter, veteran spouse, and entrepreneur. For Season 8, we continue our wonderful partnership with the Rosie Network to highlight motivational stories of personal growth, financial awareness, and autonomy in our military community. We're also excited to showcase our partnership with Blue Water Advisors. Well, we have a lot in store for you this season, so let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back. Jen Amos here, your host for Holding Down the Fort by U.S. VetWealth in partnership with the Rosie Network. Got a question for you, a self-reflection question for the day. Have you ever been challenged to create a flexible, fulfilling career that complements your lifestyle? I know I have. I'll get to that later, post-commentary. For Kirsten Machamer with Simple Home Reset, she shares how she transformed her experiences with military moves into opportunities for growth and connection. Kirsten shares her journey as a military spouse, including the challenges and joys of adapting to new environments and transitioning from a public health professional to a home organization expert. She discusses her mindset shifts, emphasizing the importance of viewing moves not as obstacles, but as opportunities for personal development. Kirsten also shares her entrepreneurial journey into home organization, showcasing how military spouses can create flexible, fulfilling careers that complement military life. Kirsten's story is an inspiring example for military spouses to embrace change, leverage their support system, pursue their passions, and explore entrepreneurship. If you want to learn more about Kirsten Machamer, be sure to check out the show notes of this episode. You'll be able to get access to her website, her social media accounts, et cetera, et cetera. If you do not know how to access that on your podcast app, no worries. Just open up your browser, go to holdingdownthefortpodcast.com, and in the search, go ahead and plug in the numbers 186, that's episode 186, to find Kirsten Machamer's episode on transforming military moves into opportunities for growth and connection. All right, well, I hope that you enjoyed this conversation. And like I said, if you want to get a hold of Kirsten, check out the show notes. I will chat with you more in the post-commentary if you stick around. And with that said, happy listening or watching, because this is also available on our YouTube channel, which you can get in the show notes of this episode. All right, enjoy. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode here on Holding on the Fort. I am so excited today to introduce Kirsten Machamer with Simple Home Reset. Kirsten, welcome to Holding on the Fort.
Thanks for having me on, Jen. I appreciate being here and sharing what I have to offer.
Yes, absolutely. I'd like to start opening up by asking you, for people who don't know you, give us just a quick snapshot of your life, particularly what's keeping your life busy nowadays.
So I am a military spouse of 10 years. My husband is active duty in the Air Force, and we're currently stationed out in Colorado Springs. I have two little kids, a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, and they keep me pretty busy during the year. We love traveling, anything that has to do with the outdoors, and we are so happy to finally be here in Colorado Springs because we get to enjoy one of our favorite sports, which is snowboarding.
That's awesome. I personally have never done it. It seems scary. So I'm curious, what would you say to someone who would may or may not try it for the first time if she had the opportunity?
If you're going to try it for the first time, I 100% recommend getting a lesson to learn the basics. Cool. So you're not tumbling down the hill like I did my first time.
Good to know. I guess that would make a lot of sense that they would offer like intro classes, because I'm sure these tourist places don't want to get sued for injury and all that stuff. But yeah, I know my husband has tried it, and he would spend like hours, I guess, back in the day when he would go snowboarding. But it just seems so restricting, because it's like, in a way, it's like treating it like a skateboard going downhill really fast, I imagine.
Yeah. We've been stationed in various places for the past 7 years that did not have mountains or snow. So last weekend was the first weekend I was back on the mountain. I will tell you, I was very nervous about it because I'm just like, okay, I'm going to fall off getting the lift. That's like my biggest fear, trying to get off the lift.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I'm going to go down the mountain. I'm just going to eat it. And now it coming up close to 40 years old, I'm going to be like, it's going to hurt real good.
Oh my goodness.
Surprisingly, I did really well. And after like one run, I was like, I got this. Go do it.
Cool. Good to know. I feel reassured knowing that if one day I attempt to do it, I'll think of you as I do it.
You can always stick to snow tubing. That's always
snow
fun.
tubing. What snow is that? What is that?
It's like, have you ever gone tubing down a river? You just sit in a tube and you float on down.
Oh, okay. So it's like
you float down the mountain.
That's cool. I'll do that first. That sounds a lot of fun. But 10 years of active duty military life. I mean, what a life that must have been for you. Actually, let me ask this. Give us a snapshot of your life like 10 years ago before this crazy life that you opted into.
10 years ago. So I met my husband while we were in college, and he was originally an engineer and got stationed out at Travis Air Force Base. No, sorry. Now I can't even remember because it was so long ago.
Yeah.
He was stationed out in California.
Okay. We'll go with that.
Doing engineering. He transitioned to being a navigator for the C-130H models. And during that time frame of transition, we married, and I finished my master's in public health. And then we got orders to Japan. And so here I am going, well, great. I've created and spent my whole life working towards this master's of public health. And I was like, I was so ready. I was like, I'm going to change the world with what I do.
Yeah.
And then we get orders to Japan. And as any seasoned spouse may know, that when you go overseas, there is a very limited option for career choices. I mean, let alone when you move every 3 years, that happens as well. So needless to say, our first move, I was very devastated, to be honest. And it was a hard transition. I've traveled and I've loved traveling, but moving away from family for the first time ever is super scary. And to not have that support system. But I was super blessed to meet some amazing people and lifelong friends that I still hold near and dear to me to this day that I've met out in Japan. And the biggest thing that I had to do was step out of my comfort shell instead of just saying, well, I'm going to live in this hole of sadness because I'm away from what I know. I reached out to the people that I felt supported me during that move and tried new things. I am not a beauty person by any means, and I did my first beauty pageant ever while I was in Japan. And it was so interesting because it was just a whole bunch of women supporting each other. Like, that's just amazing to have.
Yeah.
And then after our whole Japan experience, I didn't want to leave. It's like I left holding on as tight as I could.
Yeah.
While I was there. Didn't want to be there. Now I don't want to leave.
Yeah.
I had my first child while I was there. So my son was born in Japan. That's funny because his passport says, born in Japan.
Yeah.
Then we moved to Arkansas, and that was, again, its own transition, but that's where we bought our first house. And that's kind of where I dove into finding some hobbies and passions that I love, because we realized really quickly that I had to do one or the other. And this is just for me, that I had to either be at home or I had to work. And I couldn't do both because one area would suffer because I just couldn't find the right balance for me. So I decided to stay at home and, be with my kids for those early years, which was a blessing for us. And, worked out really well. So when my husband deployed, it wasn't it's stressful, but not as stressful if I'm trying to hold down the fort and do a job and take care of all these other things. So it was just take care of me and the kids and make sure we're doing all right. My daughter was born in Arkansas, and then we moved to Florida after that. And
oh my goodness.
Yeah. All great moves and interesting moves, and they all have their benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. All the cultural shifts too, I imagine. Like every state, every place has its different culture also.
Yeah, so in Arkansas, we lived in Little Rock and we lived downtown because I didn't have to think about school. When we moved to Florida, one of my kids entered elementary school, so I had to start thinking about that. So that's a whole challenge in its own when you're trying to buy a house, but now you have to look at school systems.
Yeah.
And then we found a wonderful new neighborhood there that was growing, met a lot of wonderful, it was like a mix between families like myself and older individuals. And so, as is Florida, I guess, not to put it in a little pocket, but that's what it felt like.
I feel like you get a mix of like a lot of senior citizens, I guess, or people, retirees, right? Like in general, like people come there to retire.
Yeah, I would say our neighborhood was half retirees and then half senior citizens. And then out of that other half was like small families.
Yeah. Very interesting.
But it was a great community. We loved being there. And we discovered that we are not beach people during our time there. We like visiting the beach. We don't like living at the beach, but we enjoyed our time there. And then we moved out to Colorado. And that was a wonderful time. We're so happy to be here. We're mountain people. That's where we're supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, it only took 10 years to get to your ideal destination.
Right. And now we have about probably 2 to 3 more moves left for my husband to finish out his active duty service.
Yeah. I'm just reflecting on, I mean, I know this was like, so long ago, but I'm just reflecting on, you went to school, you were ready to really pursue your professional career. And it sounds to me that you had to go through, a grieving process to let go of the hope of, working in public health. And it seemed like life sped up after that. You went from one duty station to another, one PCS after another. I'm curious if in those times, if you had any, I guess, moments of reflection, or was it kind of just going through the motions of military life?
Probably a little bit of both. So there was a huge shift when I was in Japan, because like I said, when I first got out there, I felt like I was giving up everything to serve the mission and follow my significant other. And that can be a very heavy thing to realize, that you are, second to everything else, because that's just how this lifestyle is. It's first and foremost, your active duty member is the person who is holding down the financial fort for you, so to speak, and you're the one who's holding down the physical fort of your home. So
that's a good way to put it, by the way.
Yeah. So it was a really huge shift of expressing to my spouse that, I was struggling really hard when we first moved out there, and having the at least capacity, because sometimes when you're new in your relationship too, I mean, we had dated for maybe about a year before we got married. Then we did long distance. Well, I should say we did long distance for a year, and then we got married, and then we got stationed overseas. So having that trust to share my feelings, and say, this is where I'm struggling and I just need love and support, and, hold me in these moments, please.
Yeah.
And then finding the right people that were outgoing was huge, because I'm an introvert. I come off as this like bubbly, chatty person, but I am an introvert. So my recovery time from social events is a little different.
Yeah, I get that.
But finding the people that were outgoing, so that they encouraged me to explore Japan, which has so many wonderful things to try and see and do. And I mean, like you said, it's just a whole different cultural experience. You might as well immerse yourself in it. I was like, well, you know what? I've got no job to do, so I'm just gonna take the train and travel here and check this out for today. Check the train and go travel to this place for today. So
yeah,
there's a lot of unique opportunities when you're stationed overseas to do exploring. You just have to be open to doing it.
Yeah.
When we moved to Arkansas, we had to have another mind shift, because we wanted to buy our first house, but we had to make sure that we're balanced in our finances. So there's a lot of learning involved with owning a new house and then fixing up all the things that we did in that house. We gutted everything in the kitchen and dining area and redid a whole kitchen remodel all around.
Wow.
So, yes. And then, having to make a different mindset shift of, now my husband's deployed and now I have to serve in a role of, I'm not a single parent. And I will say, it bothered me when someone would say to me, well, you're a single parent and you can do this, you're strong. And I was like, but I'm not a single parent. I have a spouse. Right. They're deployed. I'm not single parenting. I have feedback from my spouse. And I was like, I am strong, but please recognize that it is tough and I might need extra support. So the struggle that I had then was having individuals and people surrounding me that understood that particular struggle and that I can't be strong all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like there's this common theme of surrounding yourself with the right people, like especially when you got into that headspace of like, okay, I'm in Japan. I may never have a chance to come back here. I might as well embrace it. More importantly, associating yourself with extroverts who will, pull you out of your shell and take you places. And I know for me, I think I always said that I was an introvert, but I feel like I'm more of an ambivert now. I think I can, come in and out. Like I can be pretty extroverted, but I still like whenever I, let's say, make a friend or get a text from someone who's very inviting, people who love to host things, like I lean into it. Like my husband and I were actually both like, we're both introverts in our own way. And sometimes he'll entertain the idea of like, oh, let's host something. And I'm like, honey, like, us, you can say that, but we're not going to actually, like see that through.
Right.
Instead, it's easier for us to like show up for other people's stuff. Like when we get invited to like a house party or, some event at the church, like let's like lean into that, because it's leveraging other people's like gifts that we don't have. And so getting that social aspect. So I like how, at least in Japan, you had like extroverted friends who were willing to go to those places and, they wanted to be explorers around Japan. And then I really like hearing you talk about in Arkansas where like you made sure to associate with people who understood that you're more than just a strong person. Like you're a person that needs support and, just understanding all that. It sounds like I just think that's so healthy because I think associations are everything. And if you surround yourself with people who are just like you, let's say like introverts, then yeah, you're probably never going to go outside for one. And then if you surround yourself with people who don't understand your lifestyle and don't understand that you need support too, it would be hard. It'd be really hard. So I just want to commend you for that and make that observation.
No, thanks. Yeah, it's definitely having the right people. And even if when I lived in Arkansas, I lived on a wonderful street, a lot of small families, very similar to my own. And it was just uplifting to have them be in that season of my life of saying, well, I'm a family just like you. And even though I might not know what a deployment feels like, I still got you and I'll catch you. And, our kids can play together and we can just sit and chat or be in silence, and it was just great. Like I remember one day it was super hot and my neighbor walks down the street. We were like the only yard that had sprinklers in our yard. So our neighbors came down. Mama brought like a big old watermelon. We cut it up and the kids just ran outside in the sprinklers and it was just wonderful.
I love that. Yeah. And I think it's important to articulate what you need too. It's like, hey, right now, I don't really need you to fix my problems. I just need you to feel my feelings, or I just need you to hang out with me in silence, while the kids play with each other. So it's one thing to surround yourself with the right people. And it's also another thing to articulate like where you're at and what you need. And so I think that's like so healthy because I think the military culture has shifted a lot where mental health, it's like a valid topic now of discussion. Really? But I also still think that there is a level of stoicism or need to be stoic and, hide your struggles. And so, to just hear that, it sounds to me you've had a pretty pleasant, at least when it comes to like socializing, you had a pretty pleasant military experience so far in the last decade because you've surrounded yourself with the right people.
Right. I would agree. I would say that our transitions were easy, but I feel like the hardest, and I'm sure everyone can relate to this, that we struggle is realizing when we need help and finding those people that'll hold space for us and asking for the help. So, and that can be a huge boundary to overcome for ourselves because we feel like, well, I can be stoic and I can handle this myself. And it's okay to ask for help. We can't do it all. Like even as a mom, I feel like we significantly struggle with asking for help because we should be all of these things and be able to do all of these things. And it's impossible to meet that standard.
Yeah. I think I've had enough conversations and have enough life experience to like, I just don't want to do anything by myself anymore. I really love, I don't ask for help all the time, but I do like reminding myself that, humans we're like innately, we like to support each other. Innately, we like to be in community with each other. And so part of that is asking for help. And part of that is giving help and, giving help in return. So yeah, it just kind of gets me to reflect about that. But speaking of associations, I know recently you graduated from the Service CEO program by the Rosie Network. And this is another mental shift for you, big life change for you. So tell us a little bit about this. How did you come across the Rosie Network and what are you up to now as a result of it?
So interesting. I've been organizing and decluttering and like fine tuning processes since I don't know when. And I've been doing it for friends for a long time. And it wasn't until I moved to Florida, we were in Pensacola, and I met a fellow military spouse who now was living there permanently. And I was like, I took over our HOA when we were in Florida and I kind of reorganized their structure and how they did things. And I was like, I'm really good at this, whether it be structural or, actually physically organizing our spaces and whatnot. I said, let me see if somebody would be willing to mentor or allow me to shadow just to feel it out and be like, hey, is this something I'm really interested in? Or is it just that I'm interested in it right now, but not for later? Because that kind of happens as we change our seasons or as we move and whatnot. So I reached out to an organizer in the area and I said, hey, I'm not trying to compete with you. I just want to get a feel if this is the right direction that I should be taking myself. Because after 10 years of being a homemaker, it's like, well, what do I do now? I have a bunch of life skills. How do I apply that to, any particular job? And then I'll start somewhere and then move in 3 years and have to start at the bottom again. And that can be very frustrating. So I was like, what can I create for myself that I can grow? And literally its growth depends on me. So when I reached out to her, she was like, I would love to mentor you and chat and whatnot. And we just really connected. So she's like, I'll check with my clients and see if I can have someone coming along. And it was a mindset shift for her as well, because she realized she really loved having a helper or an assistant with her when she did these jobs. So she then started moving her business in a different direction. But both of my kids, one was still at home, one was in elementary school. And I said, now is the time that I need to be making the shift into saying, hey, I want to be a business person, an entrepreneur. I don't know how to do that. I've got enough life skills that I can figure it out. I'm a good learner. I like growing. I like digging into things and researching. So I was like, I can do this. It's scary to take a leap like that because it's new, but it's not because most of the time it's not because we're incapable of doing it. It's just scary because it's new.
Yeah, exactly. I love that.
So after mentoring her, I was like, I absolutely love this. I love people going into their spaces and going, oh my God, this feels great. I feel so much better. Like it's like you lifted a weight off of their shoulders because you've removed something that's been bothering them for ages or years or whatnot. They're just like, I don't know. I've never touched it because I don't want to or whatnot. So And then when we moved to Colorado, which was in July of this year, I was like, all right, hit the ground running, got the kids all squared away with school. And once that was lined up, I said, I can commit to putting in time and investing in myself. And that was the mindset shift that I deserve to invest in myself.
Yes.
Because a lot of times when you're serving the mission and serving the family, you put everybody else before yourself.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is my time. This is my season to invest in myself. So my mentor from Florida, she's like, do this program. It'll help kind of start you on the track to think as an entrepreneur, move you in the right direction to what you need to have done and cover so that you can be more successful when you kick off your business.
Yeah. One thing I really appreciate about the Rosie Network and the Services CEO program is that it's not just like, hey, here's an introduction to entrepreneurship. Like, here's some webinars, just learn this, and, here's the A, B, and C's of entrepreneurship. It's actually very hands-on, and I feel like everyone that has graduated from it has like a website, has a mission, a vision, they can tell you they have a pitch deck, they can tell you like what they're about and their ideal client. And I am just incredibly impressed by that. Like, so you really had the skill already. It sounds to me that the Service CEO program just helped you turn into a business. Is that right?
I would say so. It allowed for clarification in areas that I was, maybe lacking in or didn't dig down the right hole, because I am a huge person of finding facts and I will go into a hole and then I'll get stuck in the hole because I'm trying to figure out everything.
Yeah.
And I want to say that the Rosie Network, with the way that it's laid out too, and its structure and everything, pushed me to keep on track, because otherwise I'd get stuck in that rut of researching. And then I'd be like, well, I don't know if this is just right for me.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if I'm trying to figure out what website platform should I build on, or what domain system should I use. And it was like being pushed along to say, you know what? I can figure it out on the road, do something, get it out there, be present, and all this stuff will work out. And if you don't like it, and here's another mindset change. If I don't like it, I can change it.
Yeah.
I can say, you know what? This isn't serving well. This isn't working well for my business right now. I can switch and I can change to another provider or whatnot. So getting over that hump, especially as a fact finder person, was huge when I was in the Service to CEO program.
Yeah.
And plus the connections you make with other businesses, because most of the time they're not doing the same direction you're going. So you get a whole completely different set of eyes who are looking at your business.
Yeah, I think that entrepreneurship is a lot. Like, I've been self-employed for 13 years now, and I still feel like it's building the plane as you're flying it, because even as you grow, now you need to build for growth. Now you need to build to scale. And I got to say, that's what I really enjoy about this life is it's like a living, breathing organism. And unless you if you don't tend to it, you won't, well, for one, you won't make money, but also it's like you won't have clients because you're not putting yourself out there, doing the things to get out there. And so it's like a living, breathing thing. And I think that, at least for me, entrepreneurship really just gets you to be so present with your life and appreciative, and also humble. I think I've learned a lot. I've embraced a lot of humility. I'm always humbled. I feel like I'm humbled every day. Every time I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess that didn't work out. Let's just try something else. It's a lot of trial and error. And I'm wondering if you feel a similar way with this lifestyle.
For sure. Entrepreneurship has its own challenges. And like I mentioned before, it can be super scary. And it's not because we're incapable individuals. It's because it's new and we're learning new things. And oftentimes we can be afraid to fail. But it's those failures that allow us for growth to exceed our own expectations within our own business. And you brought up about your business or your entrepreneurial journey being a living, breathing organism. It's, if you don't nurture it, it's not going to go anywhere. So you have to have the time to tend it. And I think of a lot of things we'll see floating around on social media and stuff like that, oh, you can do it this way and you can do it this way. And it's so easy. And it's not. Entrepreneurship is a hard journey, but it comes back to surrounding yourself with the people that can support you in that journey that will allow you to, flow to success. It's not always going to be easy. It's definitely not a straight path, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the hard part about social media, and personally, why I use a third-party program to push content out, because I think social media really gets you to live on the fast lane in a way. And it's they're always pushing the rags to riches story or the overnight success story, or it's always about how much content you can produce, how quickly can you produce it, and the most audacious TikTok videos you can make. And, I just think it's just nice, at least for me, to kind of remove myself from that. And, like you said, surround yourself with the right people. Fortunately, I work with my husband, and I mean, sometimes, depending on the day, sometimes I say that he's too much of an idea guy. And I'm like, could we stick with this one thing that you were so passionate about yesterday? At least, but anyway. Yeah, there's a lot of push and pull with us, but it's good. I like it because I like that he's the visionary, because even if I created structure and wanted to stick to one thing, that one thing may actually be the reason that's holding us back. I've had to learn to kill my babies, so to speak, and try to pivot. I've had to learn to do that and not be so emotionally invested in certain things that are really holding us back more than anything. And so he helps me learn to let go. But I also feel like I help ground us and say, hey, we can't do everything. So, speaking of which, I know that your spouse I imagine your spouse has been, it must be really interesting for them to see your journey. And I'm curious what it's like for them to be supporting you and in this journey that you started last year.
It's been an interesting shift. So when I was researching essentially into like, is this the direction I want to go? What kind of support do I need? It came down to, hey, when I start this business, there's going to be a lot of time that I'm putting into it that's probably going to crunch into like our evening time after the kids go to bed or whatnot. And I'm like, I know I've got to get a work-life balance. I got that. But at the same time, in order for me to experience growth, I still have to put in the extra hours up front so that down the road, my time is used more efficiently and effectively balanced much better, because then at that point, hopefully I'm hiring a team to do more of the stuff on the outside, and I can spend more time where I want it, where it matters to me with my family. So there's
I love that
learning curve in there and adjustment, and it's him taking on some stuff that I have done for the past 10 years, you know, like, okay, hey, now instead of me taking the kids all the time to all the events, I need you to be present for this one event, take this one, and I will do this one with this one so that we can divide and conquer.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, not keeping score here, but honey, can you help with the kids while I do something else for the first time in 10 years?
I'll fill the refrigerator. You make sure the food is cooked. Thanks.
Yeah, and keep the kids alive. Okay, bye. I'm working on my business. And, you know, I think that's great because I think you say seasons a lot, and there's seasons where you have to sacrifice time with, your spouse to put in the work. And then there's going to be some seasons where you'll get your time back because, you grow your business to the point where you can delegate, hire out. But for now, like, the early stages of entrepreneurship does require a lot of sacrifice, and just knowing that time is temporary. Like, you won't always have to sacrifice so much time. You won't always have to miss out on family events or holidays. That's just the early stages. And then later on in the business, if you have to scale, you may have to go back to that again. But, that I think that's just the ebbs and flows of being in business for yourself.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. No, I love it. No, that's great. I'm glad that he's very supportive and takes care of the kids every now and then. Yeah. Yes. And so I'm curious now to know about, like, I know that this is something that, one, you were just a natural with like organizing. That's always been something you've enjoyed, and now you've turned it into a business. Tell me like what your, I guess, sustainability plan is for Simple Home Reset.
Sustainability, give me a little more detail there.
Yeah. What is your hope? Like, how do you hope to make this sustainable? Like, let's say, for example, even if you like PCS again, like, have you thought about what this could look like in the future? If you haven't, that's fine. Like, if you're just like, you know what, I'm stacking one brick at a time, but
I think you definitely need to, if you want to be successful, it's not really setting goals. It's setting what I would say is milestones. Because I feel like when we set goals, it has an end point. And once you reach it, then what are you going to do? That milestones, you continue to set yourself up for growth. So when I was in the Service to CEO program, we had to do like a milestone timeline, whatever. And it's like, where did we start and where do we want to go? Some people kept it small and some people went really big, and I went really big. So that I was very clear on where I wanted to go so that I am making these steps towards that. And in my first 3 years here in Colorado Springs, I was like, I want to grow and build relationships. I don't necessarily need to have a team yet, but I want everything in place so that when I move again, I know how to hit the ground in the first year and then build a team in the next 2 years after that in our new station. If I get a team here, that's great. Then we've been growing really well.
Yeah.
But not making it so concrete that that's what I have to reach, but having and making those milestone steps of saying, okay, I want to reach and I want to network. That's what I'm working on right now, building visibility. And then the next step is, furthering those relationships so that I become like a top choice in our area and putting the processes in place for a team. And then the next step would be hiring a team. Now, if that happens in 3 years, great. If that happens in 6 years, that's where I want to be. And then the bigger goal of like, where do I see ourselves in 10 years? And hopefully at that point, we would know where we want to be permanently. And becoming the top, like my goal, my milestone would be to be the top choice in our area for organizing, space planning, your interior designing.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, I am going to have a team. Like I can do space planning, but the interior designing side is not my forte. So I'm going to need other members that I can hire that are part of our team to serve in all of those fields in order to have this bigger enterprise type business. And again, it's scary to have those big dreams that I'm going to have this big company, right? Like how can I imagine that when I'm starting so small right now? But if we don't put those dreams and milestones in, we're not going to grow our business and we're not going to reach that point where I'm doing less, but getting more out of it.
Yeah, I also think setting those milestones gives you like a North Star to follow. Like just know it's kind of like having a vision board. It's like, okay, like even if it's too audacious, like why not have it anyway? Because
you should be audacious.
Yeah, exactly. Because even if you don't hit it, you'll probably hit a version of it, you know? And the only way that's possible is if you set those, as they call it, like BHAG, like big, hairy, audacious goals, I think is what some people tell me about that. But I think that's great. And I love how you call it milestones. I get to think of, often I've always told myself that the final destination is death in a way. And that sounds very morbid, but just follow me. Like the final destination in life is death. So everything else should be a milestone so that you're always like growing and you're never looking for that final destination. Because I think that a final destination is kind of like the carrot on a stick that you may or may not ever attain, you know, and I think if you make it milestones, it is more attainable and you can give yourself, like once you hit those milestones, you can give yourself little moments of time to celebrate, you know, that you made it to that certain point, you know? So I really like that. And I love how you already, you know, set like your 3-year plan, 6-year plan, 10-year plan. And I think that's great. So you have like this big vision for, you know, for your business.
Yeah, it's super helpful to have it. And then another key point would be to, you know, be flexible and pivot when you need to. And then don't worry about trying to fit some type of mold that you've created in your head. Like, yes, I have my milestones, but how I get there might look different from when I first envisioned it. For example, when you're doing your business and you're doing marketing and you are creating a niche for yourself, who are the people you're talking to, right? I think I've changed my niche like 6 different times because I'm finding out what truly speaks to me and what truly connects on a deep level to just what would bring me joy so that joy transfers to the people that I am serving. So first I was like, I just want to help busy professionals get their homes all decluttered and organized. And I sat back and I was like, okay, busy moms. And while I still like to serve them, I was like, I really want to help moms in their kids' spaces specifically. I think as I've watched my kids grow and encourage them to be creative, their own little unique individuals, and supporting them in their ebbs and flows of childhood and the challenges that they face when they're in school, out of school, siblingness, all that. I want to create spaces that encourage them to be creative, imaginative, and reflect who they are. And I absolutely love providing that for them and want that to transfer to other families, that they can provide this fun, creative, more organized space for their kids to operate and function in that's uniquely just for them.
Yeah. My hope for you is that you'll be in business for a long time because, you know, we all go through life changes and the most obvious is kids. Like you said, it's like, hey, their playroom, that's going to evolve. Like, you know, over time, if not every month or every week, because, you know, kids get bored of toys really easily or, you know, whatever, they break toys or, you know, just they get bigger. So then you need to accommodate for them to have more space. And so I love that, you know, to focus on mothers and creating a space for, you know, to make sure that like their space evolves with like the kids' interest and all that. So I think that's a very fine niche. And, you know, even if you end up, let's say, pivoting later on and choosing a different demographic, like I think that also goes back to the living, breathing organism of what a business is. Like there's going to be a season where you're going to want to serve certain people. And then after a while, you're like, you know what? I don't want to work with professionals anymore. I want to work with moms. And then you never know, that may change. But I love that you give yourself a lot of grace and flexibility to be open to like different opportunities and all that. Cause I think that, I think for some people, it can be very easy to feel like we're set on our idea. We got our ducks in a row and we have to like hold on to that idea. Even like what I said earlier, like even if it's starting to hold us back from actually like having your business grow. So I just want to say kudos to you for giving yourself that openness and flexibility to evolve and pivot.
Right. It's definitely necessary. Another thing I was hyper focusing on, especially as a military spouse, was that I know how to do moves and I know how to do them well. And I was like, well, maybe I can serve in that capacity. And again, it comes down to, okay, well, yes, I can help in that area and I can be very good at it, but is it going to bring me joy that's going to transfer into the people I'm serving? Because a move can already be really overwhelming. And if we can't make it, or my team can't make it a joyful or less stressful process, then we need to be serving in another area.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of like just because you're part of this life doesn't mean you have to serve, the people that you're sharing this life with. Like you could go in it. I think like it could be a breath of fresh air for you to like focus on a completely different demographic, because it's like you're already having to do that for your own family. Like to do that for other families may not be as joyful. So I think that's great to give yourself that opportunity to, try out a different demographic.
Right. Whatever. I think the biggest thing is the people that we find the easiest to serve and bring compassion and kindness and joy to that is people that are very similar to what we already are. So in my current season, I have small children and it brings me joy to do that. And I can transfer that enthusiasm into serving moms and their kids in this phase of life.
Yeah.
So I think we overthink sometimes of who we can serve, and literally they're right there in front of us because we want to serve ourselves.
Yeah.
Someone like us, because it's easier to connect on that level. And then that just gives us better confidence because we're there in that season.
Yeah, you're very wise. I feel like, you're a mom, so I guess that's part of it. I was like, I feel like I'm learning so many life lessons from Kirsten right now. Yeah. Well, I feel like I've, asked all the things that I wanted to ask you about your business and your life and your story. And I just want to make sure before we wrap up here that I asked everything you wanted me to ask you. So is there anything else that you want to share with our audience as we start to wrap up?
I think if I can, I'd love to share like a few takeaways for our listeners to encourage them, especially if they're in a season of shifting to discover who they want to be or where they're going. It's so easy for us to get stuck in our own headspace because of fears or of limiting ourselves and following orders because that's what we're used to doing. That's the life we've been leading, supporting everyone else around us and forgetting to invest in ourselves. And that's going to look different for everybody, whether it's investing in time to take the trips with your spouse alone without your kids or investing in your own personal endeavors, no matter how big or small they are. And then taking that leap and knowing that you are a capable person. You are, and you can do great things. It's really important to dream big and tap into those passions and ask yourself what you want in this life, whether it's being able to provide for your family when your significant other is out of the service. Pay for that vacation you've always been dreaming of, or you want to travel the world every summer with the kids when you're on break. And then creating milestones and steps that will get you towards those dreams. What do you need to achieve to make that dream possible? What steps do you need to take so that you can get that vacation? To support your family when your spouse is no longer in service. And I think you should always seek to learn and to grow because that will allow you to thrive. If you give yourself an end block, you're just going to stop there and be stuck. We have to be open and willing to continue to learn, to take feedback, and then to pivot and let that serve us in the direction that we're going. And then I can encourage our listeners to ask themselves, why haven't they started? Why haven't you started it yet? What are you scared of? And write those down. Like it can be so powerful to see what's really scaring you and how to step then outside of that fear. Because like I said, we get in our own headspace and we can stop ourselves. And if we have those self-reflection conversations, we'll realize that the only thing holding us back isn't our capabilities. It's literally just our head. And then lastly would be, if you have an area that you're interested in, seek a mentor in that area. Find someone who's willing and open to mentoring you or guiding you or sharing things with you. Follow everybody that like does that thing that you like doing, because that's going to be a game changer. If you find someone who can mentor you with passion and kindness in the same field that you're heading into, you are setting yourself up for success. You are essentially investing in yourself. Get over that mindset. You deserve it. Invest in yourself so that you can move forward and thrive.
Wow. So I feel like your next business should be life coaching.
Organizing involves some life coaching to some point.
Oh, I bet. I haven't shared this story yet, but like I hired a professional organizer like over 2 years ago, and I felt like it was a therapy session because like because we were like, it was the first time I hired someone. And so in case anyone's looking for like kind of like a built-in therapy session, get an organizer for sure. But I just remember like, it was the first time I was like decluttering with a professional. And I grew up with my mom. She valued preservation. She valued like keeping everything until it breaks, and I just remember I had this Instant Pot that we had for a while, and it was actually kind of getting dangerous to keep it because like, it was just like beaten up at this point, and it kind of took longer for it to like pressurize, and it just started to become dangerous. Wherein I had this new Instant Pot that was like a 2-in-1. It was an Instant Pot and like an air fryer, like both of that, and had like 2 different covers for it. And it was like in the box, like still in the plastic. And so my organizer at the time, she was like, okay, why are you keeping this when you can just use this brand new one? And I was all like, well, because this still kind of works, it still kind of works. And she's like, okay, so you're saying you're willing to put yourself in danger because this still kind of works.
Right.
But you won't open up the new one that has, that is brand new, has more features, et cetera, et cetera. And I was all like, yes. And she helped me understand that like I deserved to open the new one. I deserved it. And that I don't have to settle for, something that's like breaking down and could, probably injure me if I open it up the wrong way. And also because my husband got it for me, and she's like, why don't you like appreciate like what your husband got for you too? Like you deserve that. You deserve to receive gifts. And so it was like this whole therapy session. I feel like it's what I really paid her for. And I love that. So in hearing you talk, it just reminds me of that time. And so, yeah, I definitely vouch for, reach out to your professional organizer, reach out to Kirsten, because I mean, if you didn't hear it at this point, I feel like there's like built-in therapy / life coaching in organizing someone's home.
That's why I like connecting with moms, because we're on the same page and we hold space for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we get so stuck in taking care of the family unit that we forget that we should talk to somebody else. And we're so used to I talk to my kids all day long and I don't have human interaction. And then you get the adult in the room and you just have all this word vomit come out because you're like, oh my God, there's an adult here. Let me say what I need to say. And so half the time it's me holding space for them and listening to them and validating motherhood.
Yeah.
And then helping them understand that we offer our kids so much. And because of how a lot of us have grown up, especially if we're now in our 30s and 40s, like you mentioned that generational thing of, well, we have to hold on to it until it breaks.
Mm-hmm.
It's like our kids don't need 50 shirts. They need probably 10 to get through the day, their week. And if you have your system set up where you're doing your laundry once a week, or your kid is doing it twice a week, depending on their age, that's enough. And then you don't have the decision fatigue, the overwhelm from all the clothes and all the clutter and stuff like that. So it's like I said, a session of validating our motherhood and the season we're in, and then saying, hey, it's okay. We don't have to have 500 clothes items for our children, especially little girls. I won't lie, I have that problem too. Little girl outfits are so cute. But listening to what our children's needs actually are and letting go of one family that I worked with, they their older siblings would hand down clothes. And she's like, but they were handed down. And I said, but are your kids using them? Are they? Are they really wearing them? Or are they just hanging in the closet taking up space? And they're wearing the same 5 shirts all the time because they're their favorite shirts. So, and she's like, oh my God, yes.
Yeah, I think it's really
so much. We're in that well, when I grew up, financial situation wasn't always the best. And so we always felt pinched. And so that can transfer when you're a parent. You're like, well, I've got to provide everything for my kids and I've got to provide the best. And honestly, our kids don't, in hindsight, they don't need much. They just need to be loved.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, they have very low standards other than it's like, hey, just love me, be attentive. And
it gets a little hairy-carry.
You're like, first 11 years is pretty good. Just show them love. Doesn't matter what you put on them.
Hanging out together. Family time is a must. They don't really care about their clothes too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you get the teen years and then the personal image comes in there.
Yeah. I'm glad wouldn't want to relive those years.
That again, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, Kirsten, this has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. I really enjoyed your conversation. I definitely got mom vibes from you. Like I felt inspired by the things you're sharing. So thank you so much for that. And and that's all I have to say, honestly. I feel like I asked all the questions and I feel inspired by this conversation. I hope our listeners do too. So thank you again for being on our show.
Thanks for having me, Jen.
Awesome. Hey, this is your host, Jen Amos. Thanks again for listening to today's episode of Holding Down the Fort by US VetWealth. Visit holdingdownthefortpodcast.com to access the full show notes of this episode, including resources mentioned and bonus content. Once again, that's holdingdownthefortpodcast.com. Lastly, stay after this outro music for something a little extra. Thanks again and chat soon. Bye for now. All right, everyone. Thank you for hanging out in the post commentary. I want to take this opportunity to reflect with all of you. Reflect on Kirsten's conversation. The reflection question I opened up with goes, have you ever been challenged with a flexible, fulfilling career that complements your lifestyle? And I'm going to say that again. Have you ever been challenged to create a flexible, fulfilling career that complements your lifestyle? I actually talk about this very extensively in our private podcast show, Inside the Fort, which is available to you for free when you join us on our portal at holdingdownthefortpodcast.com/portal. But I'll give you a little snippet as to what I shared. Having grown up as a military kid, a third culture kid specifically, I grew up, I guess you can say, conditioned and equipped to live a flexible lifestyle. Now, when I became an adult, I had to learn how to maintain that flexible lifestyle by having a business, by being self-employed, because I just remember going through college, how uncomfortable I felt with the thought of having a 9-to-5. Like, it just didn't feel natural for me. And even in my young 20s, I was fired from 4 jobs consistently. I lost 2 jobs in one day. I was fired from 4 jobs in one day. Good times. And when I started learning about entrepreneurship and pursuing it, and this was almost 14 years ago now, it felt like the shoe fit. It felt like a shoe that I didn't know existed. Now, don't get me wrong, just because, quote unquote, the shoe fit, it didn't mean that it was going to be easy. It's been a very adventurous life, I would say, these last 14 years. And especially as we slowly and surely near our 200th episode here on Holding Down the Fort, it gets me to reflect on what this journey has been like. And I'm really happy to say that this adventure I have been on has really affirmed to me the lifestyle. Like, it really affirms I guess in a way, who I've always been. But I had to work hard at it, and I still continue to do so, with podcasting and building a business with my husband and all the things. So although it's been a challenge, it's been a fulfilling one, and it's been very flexible. For most of my career, so long as I have internet, I can work anywhere. Hence why, if you're watching this via YouTube, you will notice my background shift from time to time. Change of scenery. And however, it just comes to show that I was open-minded and creative enough and adaptive enough to build a business, build a career that complements my lifestyle, which is a very mobile one. So anyway, that's how I reflect on the question. Now, let me go ahead and ask you to think about it. Have you ever been challenged to create a flexible, fulfilling career that complements your lifestyle? Let us know by reaching out to us in our contact information in the show notes of this episode. And who knows, maybe I'll talk about it further in an upcoming recording. Who knows? Or Inside the Fort, which you can get access to in our free portal, available at holdingdownthefort.podcast.com/portal. All right. Thanks so much for listening, and we will chat with you again on Thursday. See you soon.